Hi, this is Stephen Wilson, and you're listening to and watching Linea Rock. Enjoy.
To the Bone is the title of the Wilson fifth studio album, out in August 2017 on Caroline label, and we are happy to welcome Steven to Linea Rock Studios to present it. Last time we met in this studio was January 2015 for the first worldwide radio interview about Hand Cannot Erase, his previous album. Welcome, Steven.
Thank you.
Before we start, I'd like to thank our friend Julia from Spingo and Barbara, and saying welcome back to Linea Rock. Let's start straight from To the Bone. This brand new album feels and sounds like a turning point for you on the musical level, but at the same time it still shows a certain trademark of your style, for example in a track like Detonation. Would you shortly explain us more about the inspiration behind its composing and the general meaning of the opera?
I think you've kind of summed it up in a way yourself already. I think the main aim with this record was to take everything that people associated with my sound, the style of production, the style of performance, the style of arrangement, but to make a record which was more focused on the songwriting, the more melodic side of my musical personality. So perhaps not so much of the conceptual rock side that we heard on Hand Cannot Erase and some of the other albums. This album is more about the art of the song to me, and that's something that's always been there, and people have always picked up on that side of my musical personality. But this is probably the most focused I've ever been on the discipline of strong melodies, strong harmonies, memorable hooks, but hopefully without sacrificing any of the things that people think of as being part of my unique musical personality.
Okay, second question, maybe you just answered, but one of the main points in the songwriting of To the Bone, not your usual attitude towards music, we must say, is the simplicity.
Yeah.
Musically speaking, the record is strongly characterized by more linear grooves and intelligent riffs mixed with wonderful melodies, always with the emotional Wilson's wall of space sounds. I think it could be classified as one of the more innovative works in your entire solo career, as in Insurgentes, for example. Do you agree?
Yes, there will be people that won't agree. Obviously, there are some people that still love the more expansive, the longer pieces, the more conceptual rock music, the more perhaps 70s inspired side of my sound. But I certainly would agree with your parallel with Insurgentes. Insurgentes for me is in some ways still my favourite of my previous solo records, because it was another album which felt like it was focusing on the melodic side of my work, and also it was more like a true solo record in that I played a lot of the guitar myself, a lot of the keyboards myself, as I do on this record. So this record has seen me return to the role of guitar player, which actually the last couple of records I very much took a back seat to another musician, Guthrie Govan. This time I'm back and I'm playing a lot of the solos myself, and because I'm not a fantastically technical guitar player, I think the solos and the guitar playing feels more natural, feels more like an extension of the songs and the sentiment of the songs. And I'm quite proud of that side of things. Yeah.
In fact, the next question is, apart from Guthrie Govan, which musician of the previous lineups are part of the recordings, and which ones will be on the next tour with you?
Okay, so my band on the next tour is going to be Nick Beggs on bass, who's been with me for a long time, Adam Holtzman on keyboards, who's been with me since the beginning too, a drummer called Craig Blundell, who joined me halfway through the Hand Cannot Erase album cycle, and all of those guys have played on the record. I have to find a new guitar player
for the live shows,
because the last guitar player I had was a guy called David Kilminster, who replaced Guthrie, but David is now playing with Roger Waters. So I can't compete with the wages and the audiences that Roger can offer him. This is fair enough. So I have to find a new guitar player. Ninette will be coming out to play with me, the female singer that features on the record quite heavily. She'll be coming out with me on the tour as well, I hope, as much as possible. There are a few other people involved in the record that won't be on the tour. There was another drummer called Jeremy Stacey, and his brother Paul was the guy that kind of co-produced the record with me. So Paul and Jeremy Stacey both involved the record. Great harmonica player called Mark Feltham played on the record. And Mark, if people have listened to records by Talk Talk and and you know, some of those 80s classics, they'll recognise Mark's harmonica style straight away.
Great.
Yeah.
About the lyrics. Some lyrics touch that kind of absurd mass self-destruction or humanity collective suicide, often made in the name of hate or religion, ugly characteristics of our times.
Yes. Is that a question? I mean, listen, I think it's hard. It's hard to live in this world that we live in now, particularly in Europe right now with what's going on. It's hard to live in this world that we live in right now and not, it seems to me, not reflect these things. I don't want to go as far as to say I don't think it would be irresponsible to not talk about those things, but it would certainly be strange for me, because obviously if people know my work, then they know that there's a history of me talking about you know, engaging with the modern world, the way technology has affected, you know, the world that we live in. And it would be very strange to me, it would seem very strange if I wouldn't have talked about terrorists, religious fundamentalism, the refugee crisis, the kind of post-Trump fake news, the nature of truth, all of those things which I think should be on everyone's mind. To me, it seemed very natural to be writing songs about those things. And I sometimes wonder why more people aren't writing about those things. Because we all share the same planet, and these things are going on, and it seems to me that it's a lot of the older generation are writing about these things, like Roger Waters writes about Depeche Mode on their last album. The younger generation seem to be just writing boy girl, boy girl, boy girl, boy girl, sex, boy girl, boy girl. And it's very interesting what's happened in the UK over the last couple of weeks, because now the world of terrorism has come completely into the world of mainstream pop music. And now I wonder if it will be possible for the likes of, you know, those mainstream pop icons to continue to ignore what's going on in our world, because it's come right into their world now with the Manchester attack.
Let's talk about the cover. The cover of To The Bone is made by pictures that could bring the observer into a psychedelic futuristic graphic style. Am I right, or what a meaning behind?
Well, it's the image is partly kind of reflection of the title. The title works on two levels. So on the one hand, To The Bone is talking about getting to what the very core of truth is in this era, when truth apparently is something which can mean different things to different people. So we have an expression in English, maybe, I don't know if you have a similar expression in Italian, we say to get to the bone is to get to the very reality.
To the core.
To the core. Yeah. But it also works, the title also works for me because in many ways this album is the most direct musical statement I've ever made. The songs are perhaps some of the most accessible I've ever made, most melodic I've ever made. So the cover kind of reflects that. It's me, and I'm naked from the waist up, and it's just an image of me. But you're right, it does also have that very psychedelic, it's very art directed. For me, it's kind of, if you look at a cover like Bowie's Aladdin Sane, you know, it's a little bit of an homage to something that Bowie might have done, you know. So yeah, it also reflects hopefully the colours in the music and the fact the music is still very ambitious and very experimental and very colourful, as well as being very melodic.
And apart from Kate Bush, is there another artist on earth you would really dig to work with, but you never have the chance to meet?
Yes, unfortunately, if your definition of on earth means they have to be alive, most of the people I could think of have sadly passed away in comparatively recently. Prince was one of my idols growing up. Mm-hmm. Bowie, of course. I never got to meet Bowie or Prince. You know, they're two very important kind of touchstones in my career. I've been very lucky. Most of the people you know, I mean, Zappa, I would have loved to have met Frank Zappa, but most of the people that I kind of grew up listening to their music, I've met a lot of them. You know, I've been very fortunate. I've you know, in the process of remixing a lot of these classic albums, in some cases I've actually worked with them on their own music. But Kate Bush is still top of the list. All the others are dead. Prince, Miles Davis, Bowie, you know, Zappa. I'm afraid a lot of them have now left us.
About Prince, I think there's a sort of influence about Prince in this new album.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
And you recently shared the recording studio and music writing with great partners, like for some Blackfield tracks, the king of the sound engineering and mighty record producer, Mr. Alan Parsons. Is he a kind of guru or simply a landmark, a teacher for you? Do you have and want to share any special memories of those moments?
Alan, I mean, this is a great example of what we were talking about a minute ago. I mean, I've been able to work with many of the people who made me want to be a musician, and Alan is one of those guys that I think inspires the side of me that is interested in sonic excellence, you know, the best possible sounding records, you know. And it's not something that everyone is interested in these days. You know, some people think, well, because everyone listens to MP3s, why should we care about making our record sound good? That's not my philosophy. My philosophy is I want everything to sound absolutely beautiful. And Alan is the king, as you say, and this is a guy that worked on Abbey Road, worked on Dark Side of the Moon, which some might say is the most beautifully recorded album ever, and of course his own, you know, classic records as well with Alan Parsons Project. Alan was a sweetheart, and you know, one of the things about Alan is that he could have easily said to me, because I wanted him as an engineer. I didn't really need a producer. I wanted him just as someone that would capture what we were doing. And Alan has been doing it for long enough now. He could have easily said, no, you know, I'm a producer now, I don't want to go back to just being an engineer. But he didn't, and he was very gracious and very humble. And you know, Alan is full of stories, as you can imagine. So he had a story about everything. You know, if you mention a track off Abbey Road or a track off of Dark Side, I mean, I've forgotten some of his stories now, but everything, he would have a story about how they did it. And
Beatles, Atom and Mother too,
yeah,
Stewart stuff.
Yeah, so he would have a story about all of those. You know, oh, we put the piano in the swimming pool and we used this microphone, and we got the player drunk on Jack Daniels. You know, and that's one of the beauties about meeting these people that have been around for so long, is there's so many great stories they have to tell about the golden years.
Genius. Yeah. Okay, and now let's go back to 2007. After 10 years, don't you feel that at that precise point of the Porcupine career, the best expression and songwriting of Steven Wilson started? I will show you a record.
Neil Recurring. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, what did I write on that? Normal, it's a good song. I mean, you know, I think there have been, if I look back at my career, I think there have been several moments when I made a definite breakthrough as a songwriter. And you have to understand that when I started, making music way back in the sort
the
of
90s.
Yeah, particularly the music I was making. I mean, it was just me at the time, but I was making it under the name of Porcupine Tree. I wasn't really confident as a songwriter. I was more interested in soundscapes and space and texture of the music. And the songwriting was not something I put a great deal of importance in, and it wasn't something I thought I would be particularly good at doing. And then as time went on, because I love great pop music, and I grew up with great pop music, and great songwriters are very, close to my heart. And there were certain breakthroughs. I think I made a breakthrough. There was an album called Stupid Dream in 1999, Porcupine Tree, where I felt that was the first time I became a songwriter.
Yes, Don't Hate Me is an example.
Yeah, but some other songs on that record that I would point to and say, okay, that's the first time I'm starting to write good songs, And then maybe another sort of landmark would be an album like In Absentia, which some people would say is still, the highlight of the Porcupine Tree catalogue. Fear of a Blank Planet. So I'm beginning to write, beginning to write good songs, but also writing, I think, lyrics that you can. I'm really thinking hard about the lyrics, and I'm thinking hard about the concept, the overall concepts of the record. So Fear of Blank, which is 2007, which is kind of the period you're talking about, I think that was definitely a breakthrough point for me too, yeah.
And now questions about your stage experiences. You've toured all around the planet. After so many solo albums and so many gigs in the whole Western world, how can it be difficult now to build the perfect Wilson live show?
Well, I don't try to build the perfect Wilson live show, because in many respects you could think that would be just, what are all the most popular songs? Let's just play the most popular songs. And I have, although I've never had any hits, I have songs that people, consider to be highlights of my catalogue. And I have to say, I'm very selfish because I don't do that. I don't give the fans just the most popular songs. The way I approach it is this, that obviously any tour is going to be primarily focused on whatever the newest album is. And then I really look for songs that to me, in some ways, resonate or fit with the same themes that I'm dealing with on, say, the new record.
Like a concept?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it can be very loose, or it might just be musically they seem to fit. And I have, for example, on this next tour, obviously it's going to focus primarily on To the Bone, but I have an idea of 2 Porcupine Tree songs which I've never played with my solo band. I'm not going to tell you what they are because I don't want to spoil the surprise, but 2 older Porcupine Tree songs that I think fit very well with the themes, musical and lyrical. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, songs that will fit with whatever the current...
Create a way.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, next question was, we will see the new fabulous Steven Wilson band on stage here in February and 2018. Any anticipation on what do the audience has to expect from this next tour? But maybe you just answer.
Well, but also I will add to say that the next tour is going to be more visual than ever before. I want bigger and better visual elements. We're now currently filming some new content for the show, video content for the show. Mm-hmm. It's very important to me. I have all the screens and stuff, and it's one thing to say have these massive screens, but you still have to have something good to show on. I go to a lot of shows where bands have amazing screens, but they just show like patterns going around and textures. And I want to have stuff that will be very much connected to the songs and the lyrics. Yeah. So we're now in the process of thinking about filming a lot of new content. I'm going to have hopefully a more spectacular visual aspect to the show than ever before.
Sometimes you have to consider that in some countries the audience cannot understand the English language, so
also
it's not so immediate.
Also, yeah, so the visuals definitely help with that, yeah.
And do you recently discover some Italian artists that you didn't know? from the past or any current Italian act?
It's funny you should mention that because I've just discovered this fantastic new Italian act.
It's not prepared.
Cristadoro. This is what all the kids are listening to these days, guys. No, actually, you've been very kind. You've given me this record. I haven't listened to it yet, but you know, you know, obviously we talked about this before. I like a lot of music, Italian music from the past. I'm not so aware of what's going on in the current scene so much now. I rely obviously on people to recommend me, you know, new music. I can't think of anything particular Italian recently that I've discovered. Is there anything you want to tell me about apart from?
Yes. So thank you for the spot.
That's okay. Anytime.
For the advertising.
I've heard it's amazing.
Okay. Do you know and sometimes follow the Facebook page Prog Snob, in which you, along with other great representatives of this music world, are one of the main heroes? If so, anything in particular that has been funny?
Well, the answer to the first part of the question is no. So the answer to the second question is kind of irrelevant. I don't know of it. No,
okay.
Sorry.
So we suggested you to have a look on this
all right.
Facebook page, Prog Snob.
Okay, Prog Snob. Okay.
And last questions from some fans from the social forum, Genesis Forum Italia, and other guys. The first one is, how would you control the disaster that DJs, along with all those who are dealing with unplayed music, are implementing?
Okay, well, I mean, honestly, I like a lot of electronic music and I like a lot of DJ-orientated music. I think that a lot of it is very creative, and the problem is,
it's just another way to make.
Yeah, and I guess this is kind of where the question is coming from. It's completely dominant. It's dominant to the point that it almost has 100% of the attention of certainly in the mainstream. DJ orientated music now is 100% of the scene, and that's not good. That's not good. You know, I think that there is a place for that kind of music. I like a lot of electronic music. I like a lot of DJ music. If you listen to an album like DJ Shadow's Introducing album, for example, that's a masterpiece. That's as creative as any rock music, but it's all made with samples, and it's not made by a real musician. Well, you know, there's always been a place for people that are more about ideas than technique. Brian Eno is not a musician, but he's one of the most creative people the rock music world has ever produced. So I think there's always a place for those people, but the problem is right now, as I say, the complete dominance of that seems to have sent rock music completely underground. And I think that's a shame. I don't see any real alternative in mainstream music right now to DJ culture. Would I say that's a disaster? It's not good. It's not good. I wonder if somewhere along the line rock music has to take part of the blame for that, because it hasn't necessarily reinvented itself for a long time now. You know, you think the last time rock music was really in the mainstream was like grunge 25 years ago. Maybe Britpop in the mid-90s. In the UK we had a little wave of, but since then it has been completely dominated by DJ culture, to the exclusion of all other musicians. That I certainly would agree that's not a healthy state of affairs. Why it's happened I couldn't say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Cosimo, another guy wants to know, did you ever consider to contaminate your experimentation attitude with world music sounds, such as Tibetan, Indian, African or Arabic music?
That's funny, because there's an Indian guy that did a cover version of my song Perfect Life, and he played it all on the sitar, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And it's not something I would have ever imagined, you know, would sound good with that kind of arrangement. I mean, the simple answer is yes. I mean, I love, one of the things I love most about what I do is being able to collaborate with musicians from different cultures, different backgrounds. So whether it's working with a Swedish death metal group or an Israeli pop singer, both of which things I've done in the past, I've not had the opportunity to work with musicians of the kind that this person is describing, but I would certainly love to. Yeah, I would love to.
Good. And a bonus question.
Yeah.
With Porcupine Tree, you composed 19 of the songs. How much of the remaining 10%, 90%, excuse me, how much of the remaining 10% affected the decision to continue as a solo artist? A matter of expressive freedom?
Yes, but it's not really about what percentage I wrote or didn't write. Here's the situation. When you're in a band, you are, if you're a democratic band, as we largely were a democratic band, you have
to share.
You have four, like in the case of Porcupine Tree, there were four individuals, all of whom had their own musical personality and their musical tastes. Now, although I wrote nearly all the music, it didn't mean that they wanted to play it all. So it's not a question of the stuff that they wrote, it's a question of the stuff that I wrote that they didn't want to play. Or not even that they didn't want to play, is that I knew that they wouldn't particularly connect with it. So for example, you have one guy in the band that hates jazz, or you have another guy in the band that hates electronic music. And both of those things I wanted to explore. So I simply wouldn't have even presented them with music like that, because I don't want to be on stage playing songs knowing that everyone behind me is like, I'm not enjoying it. Resenting the fact that I'm playing this music. So that was it. So it was more of an issue of what I felt I couldn't bring to the band as a writer. And I felt like towards the end, particularly, the band's sound became more narrow and not as
open.
Yeah, and that's really the decision, why I made the decision.
Great. Thank you, Stephen.
My
See
pleasure.
you next time.
Thank you.